Hi, everybody. It's meteorologist Joe Cioffi on this Thursday evening. Hope everybody had a great day. And we're going to talk about Ophelia, the long-range weather pattern, and a few other things that are going on. But we look at the satellite view of Ophelia, which has actually started moving toward the east in the last 3 or 4 hours. You can see the eye very clearly on the satellite loop. Its presentation has continued to improve today, and top winds are now 100 miles an hour. And we continue to think that this is going to be a weather maker for the British Isles come Monday, with weather conditions deteriorating there as early as Sunday night. Now here is the wider, I'll give you the view so you can take a look at Ophelia and where it sets up when we look at the geography of Europe. And you can see the tiny little speck that it is right down. If you look along the coast of North Africa and just run along that latitude line, Ophelia is sitting right there, that little blob of yellow. Got this big front out in the North Atlantic. So you can see where the alleyway is setting up here. That is moving on up toward the northeast in time. And it's going to start moving northeastward. And the weather models, particularly the UK Met and the European model, show this heading for Ireland, for Wales, and for England and Scotland, and particularly Scotland. And in fact, the Hurricane Center's forecast has this as a post-tropical hurricane, as it's going to make this extratropical transition. I don't think there's any question of that, but it is going to, I think it's going to be a rather formidable cyclone when that occurs. So I'm going to jump off over to the European model first, and we'll take a look at what it did today. This has been consistently, I didn't get a chance to look at the UK Met model, but this has been consistently showing a track over Ireland and Scotland and Wales, and you could look at it better on this particular map. I think shows it up much better. So there it is on the European. This is for the 72-hour forecast for Sunday morning, and that's that low that is sitting offshore east of Spain. At this point, it is probably still tropical. It's somewhere, I think, during Sunday that it becomes extratropical, and you have a rather formidable pressure there down in the 960s this is for Monday morning, 8 a.m. So Sunday night into Monday is going to be the time frame here for deteriorating weather conditions for the British Isles, and it looks like it could move directly over Ireland, Wales, Scotland, and northern England, and on up northeast from there. So very, very interesting, because this is something we don't often see. We do see the remnants of hurricanes moving across the North Atlantic and coming in to the British Isles from the west. I can't remember seeing one coming up from the south. This may be the first one in my experience. I'll have to go back and look in case I missed something along the way. Back in 2005, we had Hurricane Vince that moved into Spain, coming in from the west. That was, I think, a first time for me. So this might be a first time for me seeing it, something going into England coming up from the south. Now, the other thing I want to talk about tonight is the long range. And we're going to go to the European's upper air, and then we're going to take a closer look at our own jet stream pattern, because we are going to see a brief change in the weather pattern overall when we look at the upper air. Now here we are on the present day, and you're seeing you're seeing. I'm going to just adjust the microphone a little bit. The ridge in the east, the trough in the west. That has been the signature pattern for the last 5 weeks or so, and that ridge, of course, strengthens as we go through this weekend. However, we do have a rather strong trough that's swinging into the Rockies, and you can see it here on the upper air for Saturday, and that trough effectively dents the ridge and weakens it enough to allow a shot of authentic Canadian air to come into the Northeast and into the Mid-Atlantic states and probably bleed a little further southward than that. Temporary, a weak ridge out in the west. But this is going to be short-lived because we don't have any blocking in the upper atmosphere. So guess what? The ridge comes right back, and by the time we get to the end of next week, we're back to a big upper high in the east with troughing in the west. Now, this may not last too long. It's quite possible that we could see at least another temporary shot of cooler air as we get toward the end of the month. But I'm not really overly bullish with regards to any sort of long-term pattern change here. It just doesn't seem to be in the cards. I think we're just going to be going back and forth, back and forth. The ridge will flex its muscle, will warm up for a day or so, then the trough will come in and knock it down and will cool off for a day or so. And I think that maybe will be the signature going forward. Here's a look. We're going to take a look specifically. I'll get a little tighter here on the jet stream so you can get a better flavor for what's happening. And we'll start with, let's go to the GFS. This is the GFS for this weekend. You can see the upper high. This is Saturday's jet stream, the upper high in the southeast. The jet running from southwest to northeast. Canada is basically cut off. All the cold air is trapped up there, and you've got that trough that's swinging through the Rockies. So what happens? Well, we're going to jump to the next time frame as we move into Monday. And we can take a look at the jet stream and what it looks like then off the GFS. And at this point, that upper high, oh, wrong one, sorry. Okay, let's see, which one is it? Is it this one? I'm sorry, folks, I'm just, I'm trying to figure this all out. Nope. You're going to have to trust me on this because I think I saved the wrong one. This is starting to get, I found it. Okay, never mind. So here we have it. Here's the jet stream for early next week. You can see how the ridge disappears in the eastern part of the United States, and we've got a northwest flow with a couple of weak short waves moving along it, and that brings down some cooler air into the northeast. A little bit of a ridge out in the west for a change, but again, that is going to be very much temporary. And when we move to the end of the week and into next weekend, back we are with the ridge building back in the east and troughing back in the west. Now, at least as far as the west is concerned, because of the California wildfires, we've been saying that maybe through the middle and latter part of next week, we may start to see a little bit more action in terms of rain. It will still have to wait until the middle of next week in order to get any kind of any kind of rainfall at all into Northern California. And that part of the equation, I think, still remains intact. I don't think anything's changed from that respect. We'll put the surface map on here and take a look at what that holds for the weather going forward. If it will let me, please let me. Okay. Right now it will let me. This is the new GFS run that just came out, so it's only out for a limited time frame. So let's move it forward. The warm up in the east as that high moves offshore. You can see there's a low that comes out of the plains and moves up toward the western Great Lakes with some rain and showers, maybe even some snow up in parts of northeastern Minnesota there and in the upper peninsula of Michigan for this weekend as this weather front moves on through in the east. Notice the weather across the nation early next week, very, very quiet, very dry, just about everywhere from coast to coast with just a few exceptions. And then after that shot of cool air moves out, it's back to warmer weather in the east. Now here we are in the west. This is for Wednesday, and we finally see a strong enough system coming into the Pacific Northwest with the trailing cold front and some rain and showers moving in toward Northern California. I'm going to, at this point, have to back up one weather model run so we can go out further into time. And it does bring a little bit of rain into Northern California, snow up into Oregon and Washington, and into Idaho and Montana. In the east, it's very dry. In the middle part of the country, very dry, just a little bit of activity off the southeast. But there seems to be a couple of systems at least, or several systems that are going to be coming into the Pacific Northwest as we move into the long-range period. Even this one, is the model on this run, has some kind of low in Colorado with some snow in the northern Rockies. Another system follows behind it, so there will be some chances for rain. If that trough gets established in the western part of the United States, that would indeed at least make things a bit more active. Now, when we go into the long range, the GFS today, for whatever reason, decided to bring a trough in the east, ridge in the west scenario in the long range. I don't know if I believe that, and at this point, I'm not going to put a whole lot of stock into it, but it did suggest a slightly, a colder look toward the end of the month. I think the best way to look at this is probably that there'll be shots of cooler air coming down every 3 days or so, and not a wholesale pattern change, at least not yet. I have to start seeing some signs of blocking. This particular run of the GFS went all blocky late in the period, and when I looked at some of the longer range indices with regards to that, I just didn't really buy it at this point. So we're just going to stick with the status quo until we get some real signs that there is a real change in this trough in the west ridge in the east scenario. So here's a look at the current eastern satellite view, and we've got this high. You can see all that dry air in southeastern Canada and New England's kind of pushing southward, and it's pushed the cloud cover, or the cloud line, further south. So that made for some nice weather where I am today, at least. Certainly nice and cool with temperatures in the low to mid 60s. Those clouds are going to come back up as we make the transition over into a warmer and more humid air mass going into the weekend. But at least from the standpoint of some autumn weather, those of you who have been waiting in the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic states, you're finally going to get some for a couple of days next week anyway. And by the way, tonight it is going to be quite chilly in the Northeast as well, with temperatures down into the 30s and frosts in a good chunk of New England. So at least we've got, if you want a fireplace night, you might have one tonight. In the meantime, just want to look at the tropics overall. Very, very quiet. What you see out in the tropical Atlantic is really an upper trough that's producing all that cloud cover, and the conditions are not favorable for development through most of the tropics. You've got a lot of wind shear everywhere you look. And I think as we look into the long range, the only place where that we'll have to watch for development, I think, is going to be in the Caribbean. In the longer term, pressures in the Caribbean are going to remain on the low side, and I think that might create an opportunity for another named storm, maybe in the 10 to 16 day time frame. But in the meantime, we're just going to enjoy what we got today, because I'm really liking this cool air. So I'm going to now check out your conversation, because I know you guys have been talking in the meantime. And let me say hi and good evening to every single one of you that is on here. And Watershed 44, by the way, takes the award today for being the first person on the chat tonight. He was on almost 30 minutes before the live stream. So good for you. Delvin is here. Sean, good evening. Yankees won last night, which was amazing. By the way, Dio, Cliff here. Patricia Owens, good to see everybody. James, NASCAR fan from Belmore. All good here. So I hope at least you got a chance to get out there in that cool weather. And yes, Patricia Owens, beautiful New Jersey. It took a little while for the cloud cover to move out of the way, but it is really, really nice. 27 Nor'easter wants to know about Siberian snow cover. I tried to load it a little while ago, so give me a couple of seconds here, and I'm gonna pull that up because I did address that tonight on a on one of my website posts. I'm gonna see if I can do this. This is a little bit difficult because. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to have a tough time with this. Okay, you know what? I can't put the image up, but I will comment about it. Okay, so you're going to have to leave it at that. All right, so far from what I've seen, Siberian snow cover growth, it has been running fairly. It's the rate of growth. For those of you who don't know, Siberian snow cover growth, how this theory works is that well, actually, I think I may have figured out a way. Let me do it this way. Maybe this will work. Okay, hang on. I'm gonna do this for you guys. Okay. Just hang on, guys. I'm gonna try to get this Siberian snow cover map up. Okay. Oh, where did I put it? Yep, found it. This is all good. I know it's on the fly, and I'm not the neatest person in the world, but you know what? This is what it is. This is a map that shows the growth of snow cover in Siberia so far for the month. This is as of today. I'm sorry, as of yesterday, October 11th, and you can see where all the snow cover is up in the northeastern corner of Siberia. Now, what the Siberian snow cover theory holds is that the rate of growth in Siberia of snow cover in Eurasia during the month of October, the rate of growth, okay, the faster it grows. The fast years where we've had fast rates of growth have led to colder than average and snowier than average winters in the eastern part of the United States. Now that theory seemed to work up until 2 winters ago, when we had the El Nino issue, and then followed by the La Nina issue from last year. It did not work well. Both those years, the Siberian snow cover growth was at the top of the charts, and that would have then led you to forecast a colder than average winter in the east. But it didn't turn out that way in either of those winters. The snow depends on where you were, especially last year, but because it certainly was a snowier than normal winter for most of the Northeast, north of 40 degrees north. But for everybody else, it was not. It seems to me, I really don't know. I know something about it, but I'm not, I'm not in depth. The knowledge I have of it is not, huge. So I don't want to misquote somebody. I certainly don't want to cast dispersions here. I have actually a lot of respect for the folks who are working on this and have developed this. But for some reason it didn't work in the last 2 years. And I think one of my takeaways on this is something that I've said with regards to the long range, and that is that it's hard for me to get my head around it. So I just, I'm not going to do a wintertime forecast because of this. And there's just too many things to look at, too many keys to the equation. It's not just the snow cover, it's the blocking or the lack of blocking. And even there, the blocking can be somewhat overstated in terms of causing colder than normal, colder and snowier winters in the eastern part of the United States. So we have had years where it's been cold and snowy, and it's had, those have been years where we've had very little blocking. There are too many factors in trying to figure it out. So I think you will sleep better if you just take the approach of it will be what it will be, and just look at stuff with respect to the short term and the short and range and medium range pattern and follow that along. But I can't I certainly can't come out with a forecast at this stage of the game and say, hey, we got, these things going on, therefore, this is what's going to happen come the winter time, because a lot can change between now and December and January. So why don't we just wait and see how this all plays out? I would just tell you that at least if you're on Long Island, for example, we've had 5 winters in a row of above normal snowfall. We've never had 6, so that'd be pushing the envelope in my view. And we've also had 40 inches or more for the last 5 winters, and actually the prior 4, the first 4 of those were 50 inches or more, and that's never happened. So you're trying to go for 6 in a row here, it might be a tough sell, at least from that one specific point, because snow amounts and snowfall totals vary widely over geography. So a lot really depends on where you are. Let's see. Patricia Owens, I know you say you miss Long Island, but I'm telling you, getting around in the traffic has been getting worse and worse over the last 5 or 6 years or so. Let's see. Okay, you guys are talking about the Islanders, who are still going to be playing over at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn for at least the next few years. All right. So anyway, just let me give one last check to any additional. Daniello, what do I think November will be like? Well, I don't see any real pattern change going into the first part of November, so I'm thinking November may start out the way we are now, although at least I think when we get into these ridge positions in the eastern part of the United States, perhaps they stay they'll be of shorter duration and not last for 6-7 days or more. Do you think we might have a pattern change by November, December? Christopher, I think if things play out according to how they usually do, sometime in that time frame there'll be at the very least there'll be a pattern adjustment of some kind. Patterns a lot of times like to lock in general for a 6 to 8 week time frame. Sometimes they can last longer than that, but if we go into the middle part of November, it would take this pattern to about 6 to 8 weeks. So maybe that would be time for some kind of flip. We'll see. We'll have to see some changes wholesale going on in the upper atmosphere for that to happen. I'll be looking, of course. Right now, I don't see any signs of that happening. Maybe by the time we get to the middle part of November, it might. I was kind of scanning through some of the longer range models. Some of them actually were kind of showing maybe a change of some kind going into November, but nothing too extreme. And by the way, that might be how this goes out. If we get a pattern change, it might be something that adjusts to, let's say, something that resembles normal or average, rather than going to the other end and going well below average. We haven't been able to do that for long periods of time lately. So right now, we're going to just have to wait and take it one model run at a time. All right, folks, got to get ready because it's almost showtime. Again, I hope everybody had a great day today. I've got posts on the long range, on Siberian snow cover, and on Hurricane Ophelia on the website, meteorologistjoecioffi.com. So do by all means check that out. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, welcome. I hope you enjoy my YouTube live streams, which I do at least once a day. When weather is active, I might come on twice or 3 times a day. We're going to be watching and paying attention, of course, to Hurricane Ophelia, a very interesting meteorological event that is going on with a potential hurricane moving up toward the British Isles on Sunday and Monday, coming up from the south rather than coming up from the west. So we'll be keeping you updated on that as well. And of course, with respect to the California wildfires, again, no real meaningful rainfall there until maybe at the earliest the middle part of next week. All right, have a great day, folks. So we will see you on Friday.